Okay, good morning, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us. It is now 11:30. We'll probably wait a couple minutes before we get everything rolling, but I just wanted to start off with some quick introductions. We are here today for the Water and Wastewater Infrastructure Grant application with El Paso County's Arpa funding. And so I'm just going to introduce everybody that's on the panel today. We have Craig Dawsey. Craig, just say hi. He's the Executive Director of Planning and Community Development here at El Paso County. And we have Amanda Grant, who is the Arpa Grant Manager. And then we have Will Koger, who is the Division Manager for Forest Grant Associates. And Mike Warsak, who is the Project Manager for Forest Grant as well. My name is Jyotsna, and I am the Communications and Public Relations Manager here at El Paso County. Again, for anybody who's just joining us right now, this is the pre-application webinar for the Water and Wastewater Infrastructure Grant application with El Paso County. All right, it's 11:32. Let's just get started. This is all going to be recorded, and we're going to be putting it up on our website for anybody who's not able to make it here today. So with that being said, first question that goes to Amanda is, does the full project need to be complete by 2026 or just the part being funded through ARPA?
Yeah, so we're aware that a lot of these projects are long-term projects, and so we don't expect the entire project to be finished by 2026. What does have to be done is all of the funding must be expended by 2026, and so the portion of the project that ARPA's funding needs to be completed. And then we'd also like to see, viable progress towards the completion of the full project.
Great. Okay, so the second question we have is, how are you going to be distributing the funding? Will they be getting a check on the front end once the project has been approved? I think, Amanda, that's for you too.
Yeah, so no, it won't be an upfront check. We'll either be distributing the funding through a drawdown method or through reimbursement, just kind of depending on the amount of the grant and the risk analysis.
Okay, great. The third question I have is, what is the maximum single project grant amount? Is it $8 million or less? Amanda, that's for you too.
Yes. So we have not determined a maximum amount for any single project. However, I would just remind all applicants that our total allocation for this program is $20 million, and we expect to fund multiple projects.
Okay, great. Is there a match requirement?
There is not a match requirement.
Okay, and Craig, I think this one's going to be for you. What goals and policies outlined in the El Paso County Water Master Plan are the most important parts to focus on, if there's any?
Well, I helped write that, so I think they're all important. So I wouldn't say that there's any that are more important than others. Conveniently, those goals and policies are all included in one long list at the back end of the Water Master Plan. Similarly, we did the same thing with the county's land use master plan. So when you're referencing that document, you can go to the implementation chapter, and the list of policies, goals, and strategies is included there as well. So it's kind of a cheat sheet of sorts, but I certainly would not put more weight on any one policy or goal than any other.
Okay, great. So I think this is more of a general question that I think anyone can answer. What are absolute grounds for an application to be disqualified, if there are any? Maybe I'll start with Amanda and see if anybody else wants to chime in.
Yeah, so these are federal pass-through dollars, so they came directly from the American Rescue Plan Act. So one way that an application would be absolutely disqualified is if the project doesn't meet the eligibility requirements that Treasury has set forth.
Anybody else has anything to add to that?
I'd agree with that. I think everything else would be given consideration.
Great. What about if it's like an incomplete application or something like that?
I think we can work with an incomplete application. We can reach back out to the applicant and try to glean the additional information. If that information isn't given to us, prior to the committee meeting to score these, then obviously, the application may need to be disqualified at that point.
Okay. Great. I'm looking at the chat here. I don't see any questions on the chat. If anybody has any questions, please feel free to put them on there. Since this is a live event, we can only see the actual presenters and we can't see you. So there's no option to, raise your hand or something like that for me to call on you. So you would have to write in your questions. If for some reason you don't feel comfortable doing that right now, you are welcome to email us questions later and we will respond to you. But this would be really helpful for everybody since, if you have a question, chances are somebody else also has that same question. And it would be really helpful to Amanda so she's not having to answer 50 of the same questions over and over again. So please, I encourage you to please put your questions into the chat.
We do actually have one question in the chat. It's not actually
great.
chat, it's Q&A, and the question
perfect.
is posted in there. Let me know if you can find it.
Great, I see it. Oh, yeah, there's that question. Is there a match requirement, which we just asked? So great. We did answer that question, right, Amanda?
Yes, yeah, there is no match requirement.
Okay, super. Thank you. So the other question I have here is, what documentation is needed when you ask for documentation regarding drinking water or water quality deficiencies? And this might be a Craig or Will question.
Yeah, so that would be if something is on an impaired waterways list, or there are permit violations, or if there are drinking water standards that someone is not able to meet. Those are all things that would be documented with information from the state, possibly. So whatever information you have regarding those issues would be helpful to submit.
Okay, great. I hope that answers that question. The other question I have is when you're asking for the unique entity identifier, the UEI, do you want the DUNS number or do you want the SAM.gov number?
So we just the federal government recently just switched over from the DUNS number to the unique entity identifier. So we'll be asking for the UEI.
Okay. And that, sorry, go ahead.
Sorry, anyone who has already registered their DUNS number on SAM.gov will be automatically issued a UEI. If you've never applied for a DUNS number or registered, just go ahead and apply for the UEI directly on SAM.gov.
Okay, great. That is the end of the questions we were asked beforehand. I don't have any other questions on our end. Is there any announcement that anybody on the panel would like to make?
So, Justin, I can actually see a few questions. It's not in the chat, but
how am I not seeing it?
If you go to the live event Q&A and you look under published.
Okay, yeah, all right, well, thanks. All right.
Sure.
Yeah, so let me just ask this question right here. Very small, private, non-community transient in El Paso serving a campground, much in need of security update. Can we qualify?
So I'm not quite sure what a security update would be. If you were looking at our application where we talked about cybersecurity being inclusive, that's specific cybersecurity for a water treatment facility. So without a little bit more information, I'm not quite sure.
Okay, so for that person, please send us a little more of a detailed email to arparequest@elpasoco.com. I'll put that email into the chat as well, so you're able to see that. And it's also on our website. The next question we have here are entities that receive their own ARPA allocations still able to receive funds?
Yeah, so smaller communities that maybe receive their own ARPA allocation would not be excluded based on those grounds from receiving this grant.
Okay, great. And then another question is, we're still working on our project costs. To what degree do we need a full estimate versus a general budget for the project?
I would say with that, whatever information you have developed so far on a cost estimate, just go ahead and give us what you got, and that's the best policy. Is just as you look through these questions, give everything, tailor your response to those questions as much as you can for the project you're interested in.
Okay. And then what is the deadline for submitting the application? Let me just pull up the application.
So the grant application closes at 5 p.m. on April 22nd.
Correct. And yeah, and that is that information you can also find on the instructions page of the actual application. And the next question is there a scoring table?
There is not one that's been issued. There is a scoring that the team will use to score the applications on.
Okay. Are there any other questions coming in that I don't see that you guys are seeing?
No new questions.
Okay. Perfect. Is there anything else the team would like to add? Amanda, anything they should be paying special attention to?
Yeah, I would just encourage all of the applicants to go out to our website. I know Joseph is going to put the link up to the entire final rule that Treasury published on these funds. It's a long read, it's 437 pages. So we're also going to stick the overview of the final rule up. That is only 44 pages of federal guidance. But if you start on page 37, there's some really good information about water and wastewater projects, and it gives specific examples of projects that are allowable under those different programs.
Great. And Blake, are you putting that up right now?
Page 37, you said?
Yeah, 37 has a nice little table with very specific examples of what projects are going to be eligible. You can cross-reference also through the Clean Water State Revolving Fund and then the Drinking Water State Revolving Fund to see additional projects that are eligible that maybe aren't listed. But those are the two that Treasury really is heavily relying on, aside from a few other outlying projects that are eligible based on the need of the community.
And then Amanda, sorry, go ahead, Will.
I was just going to say there's an overview document that's different than the application here, Blake.
That's the one I just emailed you right before we started, Blake. But while you're looking that up, I'm going to read this question put forth by Andy. Page 1 instructions confirm that a wastewater project does not have to meet federal eligibility requirements, which includes 17 project categories under guidelines published through the EPA's Clean Water State Revolving Fund and the Drinking Water State Revolving Fund. That a wastewater project does not have to meet. Is that correct?
Yeah, Mike, we chatted about that one earlier. Do you want to take that one?
Yeah, that would be, it would have to meet, either meet the state drinking water requirements, or excuse me, the state revolving fund requirements, or there are some other projects in addition to that it would have to meet. And those project types are listed on pages 37 and 38 of this overview document.
So you were saying that they do have to meet, right?
Yes, they have to meet. They have to meet any of those project requirements for the state revolving fund, or some of an additional list of project types. But they do have to fall into one of those categories.
Okay. Does that answer your question, Andy? Okay.
Yeah, so once we get that additional document up, on page 38, it talks about some additional eligible projects that were broadened under the final rule beyond what's in the CWSRF and the DWSRF. Those projects have to be found necessary according to the definition in the final rule, and that's outlined in that document, and then also be cost effective. And so, you know, it really narrows it down to some culvert repair, a little bit of dam and reservoir rehabilitation, and a couple of other small things that are eligible outside those two specific federal programs.
Okay. All right, and Blake is pulling this up right now. If anybody has any other questions, please feel free to drop them in the Q&A, not the chat, sorry.
So on page 37, there's a list of everything that's eligible under a Clean Water State Revolving Fund in the first section there. And then the lower part of the page is under the Drinking Water State Revolving Fund. And then the next page, 38, shows what projects in addition to the SRF projects are eligible.
And Rob just asked a question, where do we get the list of available projects?
If you're talking about the specific document that we're sharing right now, Jyotsna will be putting that up on our ARPA webpage under the tab for water applications.
Which is on the ARPA webpage, it's the third tab to the right side. It says water and wastewater infrastructure grant, so it's going to be in that webpage. And I can also send a follow-up email to the entire list of people we have. I cannot remember what that is called right now, but yeah, the entire list of contacts we have. I'll send a follow-up email after this with all the resources for you guys. And if you have a more detailed project that you need a more one-on-one type of, walking you through the project or whatever, feel free to reach out to us and we can probably schedule a time to listen to your request a little bit more, just if you think it's too specific or too cumbersome for this webinar right now. But again, if you have a general type question that you think could be helpful to other people, please feel free to again put it into the Q&A. And I'm just putting in the email address as well for you to send other questions to us. Like I said, it's on the website, it's on the water application itself. It is ARPA request at elpasoco.com. And another reminder, everything has to be submitted electronically. If you need any sort of accommodations, please do let us know about that as well. Whether you need to hand in some things on a paper copy or whatever, please let us know that beforehand. Other than that, I have nothing else to add. I'm just going to check one last time to see if there's anything on the Q&A. Seeing nothing.
It looks like Andy asked another question about does the ARPA funding have to completely fund a specific project component or portion of the project, or can it simply contribute to a portion of the overall project budget? It doesn't necessarily have to fund a specific project component, although I would say there is a preference that we understand which portion of your project that the ARPA dollars are going towards to ensure that it is program compliant. I would caution, if you are putting this simply as a portion of your overall project budget, that you understand all of the federal requirements that will be expected to be followed for your entire construction project.
Thanks for catching that, Amanda.
Sure, no problem.
Is there anything else? Did I miss anything?
Nope, that was the only one I saw.
All right, any last words of wisdom from the panel?
I would just say this program is built for a lot of flexibility, and so I would encourage folks, if you think your project has a chance at being eligible for this, I'd say go ahead and work on submitting it, because it's a good program and can really help some entities across the county.
That's a good add-on. Thank you. Anything else? All right. Well,
I was just going to note it's in the application, but we are reserving a portion of these funds for smaller communities and smaller projects. So I just want to make sure I encourage our smaller communities with smaller water projects to still apply. Even though there's some bigger ones out there, we recognize the need in those smaller communities. And so we're ensuring that we're funding both some of the larger projects and the smaller projects. Dana, no, Davis-Bacon wages are not required for any ARPA funding. That is one provision that the federal government is not requiring that we follow with these ARPA dollars.
Got some more questions flowing
yep,
in.
Okay, yeah, I see. Dana's the AIS question. Did you answer that, Amanda?
I'm not sure what AIS is.
Yeah, if you could elaborate on that a little bit, Dana. And the other question is, can you repeat the response to Dana's question on eligibility if we already received our own ARPA funds?
Right. No, that in and of itself wouldn't disqualify a project from consideration. So I would still encourage anybody who received their own ARPA allocation that it's not fully funding their needs to go ahead and apply.
Great. Okay, I'm just waiting to see what Dana's AIS question is.
American Iron and Steel. I am
There we go.
not familiar with that, Craig or Will or anyone else.
I'm not familiar with that either. Maybe Will or I don't know if there's anybody else who would know that answer.
Yeah,
I'm familiar with the program, but I don't know if this grant requires it. Amanda, we'd have to check and see
Okay.
if that's a requirement that certain majority of the materials meet the American Iron and Steel Act requirements.
Okay. Yeah, reading through all of the requirements and all of the federal rule, I haven't seen that mentioned at all. What Treasury says is they encourage recipients to adhere to strong labor standards, including project agreements and anything that offers a community benefit. But some of the federal restrictions that generally come with federal dollars are not applicable here. So my assumption is no, it's not going to, but we can definitely do a little more research and follow up and get back to you.
Great. Now I'm just kind of waiting to give it a couple minutes for it to populate, because every time I say, okay, we're done, then I see like a whole bunch of questions pop up. Come on, you guys, I know you have more questions. Put them in there.
Got one.
I saw in the ARPA, if allocation was greater than 10 million, then Davis-Bacon would be required.
My understanding is Davis-Bacon is not required outside of the DC area. But I'm happy to relook at it and see if you want to maybe send me the piece of the document that you're looking at. I can take a look at that for you and we can chat offline.
Okay. Well, I'm just going to point out some mundane but important things, right? That the application is a fillable PDF. So you do have to download it, fill it out, and then send it in electronically with the rest of your supporting documentation. And I think the nice thing about the fillable part is that you can kind of work at your own pace with it, because I think some of the applications we've had in the past, you kind of had to do it in like one sitting. So that's a plus, I would say. And what else? So we are anticipating the grant announcements to be on June 17th. And again, I say the word anticipated just because it really depends on the number of applications we end up getting, right? We want to make sure that we are doing our due diligence and giving them all the time, the gravity that they deserve. So if that changes for any reason, we will definitely reach out to you and let you know. And the grant application again does close at 5 p.m. on April 22nd. So are there any new questions that I didn't see?
No new questions.
Okay. Yeah, I see that, Dana. Yeah, there's definitely a little bit of a lag in the submission, for sure. All right, I'm going to give one last call to see if anybody has anything. If not, thank you all for your time. Thank you for, being incredible community members. Thanks for your patience as we work through this. I know it's been it's taken us a little time. We just had to make sure we had all the right components in place. We had Foursquare here to help us with this. We're all very appreciative of you and your patience and everything. Again, please feel free to reach out to us with any questions you have. Amanda, Me, Craig, the Foursquare team, we're all here to assist you with this. Send all of them to ARPA requests at elpasoco.com, just so we're sure that we're getting all your questions and nothing is getting lost. If you need to have more of a one-on-one conversation with us offline, please feel free to send a request to do that as well. And we will be updating everything on our website, all the resources that we talked about. I'll send you a follow-up email after this with all of that information, as well as put it up on our website if you need it. And I see nothing else come up. Does anybody see anything? Blake, is there anything that I don't see?
Nope, no new questions.
Okay, super. With that, I think we can call it. Again, thank you very much, panel.
Thank you.
All right, well, see you guys later.
Thanks, everybody.
Bye.
Bye-bye.